Guys, welcome back. We've got a special guest in, Brian Swan. If you're watching the video of this, I got to confirm that is not a green screen. Brian's actually sitting there right now. I had to query him before we kicked things off. Now, Brian has a very, very unique life. The way that their family is structured, I've heard him speak, and that actually guided the way which helped me choose my way through fatherhood. Brian doesn't know this yet, but we'll delve through this in a sec, which is the perfect day that we're going to discuss. But Brian and Ken have a very close relationship. So Ken, do you want to give Brian a bit of an intro, what he does, and I guess the connection and what you guys have done together?
Of course, certainly. Now listen, the first thing I know about Brian...
Ken, I think that he's frozen.
While he's frozen, I'll just give a little intro on me while he comes back on.
Yeah, please do.
No worries. I'm Brian Swan. I'm the founder of Unstoppable Beard. I provide top shelf products for the distinguished man. I'm also the co-founder of the Unstoppable Branding Agency, where we turn best kept secrets into world-renowned brands, and then also father of a 14-year-old who was able to create her first six figures at the age of 11. So there you go.
That's pretty crazy. So I've actually heard you speak when you came to Perth, and I'm not sure, but if you remember, but we briefly met there, which was also an event that Ken was at. And you guys have a really unique story, and I guess how your family's structured. It's very, very much out of the box and not your traditional 9 to 5. But you did start into that 9 to 5 space. So to give people context a little bit about where you started, do you want to give us a little bit of a background of, I guess, where you were in the early stages of your career?
Yeah, just to give you a little bit even more context, I'm 47. I grew up in a town of 2,000 people, about 3 hours outside of Chicago. And I went to University of Illinois, got a robotics engineering degree, and moved to San Diego. And that's where I met my wife back 23 years ago. So I started out from my first decade out of university doing robotics engineering, covered the whole West Coast, sold actuators to Elon Musk back in the day when he was starting SpaceX. So
you personally sold them?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I didn't know it until like many years later, until I didn't know it was actually Elon, and then I put it together. I'm like, wow, because that was back. If you put it back in early SpaceX, that was like 2001, 2002.
That's so cool. That's really, really cool. And so with that story, so you had it was a pretty high level corporate job. How long were you doing that for?
Nearly a decade, 9.5 years to be exact. My wife, she got started. So she was working for a big pharmaceutical company, Fortune 100, GlaxoSmithKline, and then what she realized, we had perfect, like the American dream. Both met in San Diego. We actually met surfing back in 1998 in San Diego. Multiple six-figure corporate jobs, cars, all the insurance, and yada, 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 right? But it was a thing after we started investing heavily in real estate back in the early 2000s. We just started climbing the corporate ladder, investing heavily in real estate. And my wife, it was in 2004, end of 2004, we just bought our first $1 million house. And this is while the real estate, we thought we were real estate moguls, but all we were it was the timing, right? It was just like we were investing while the freaking market was soaring. And my wife, Rhonda, she went to a meeting on a Monday morning, and it was a moment that just changed her life forever. And then obviously it changed my life forever. But she witnessed when she went into a meeting at like 7 in the morning. One of the ladies was late for the meeting, and the lady was crying, and the manager says, and she was like, I'm so sorry I'm late. I just put my 6-week-old daughter into daycare. And the manager said, if you want this job, you're going to drop your daughter off at 6 a.m. and you're going to pick your daughter up at 6 p.m. and blah blah blah. But it was the thing that my wife, when she heard this, she was like, that's going to be me. I can't do that. And it was in late 2004 where before we went on our corporate jobs to go, we were both outside sales, looking at the surf because we're both surfers. And she said, I want to have a family. And I'm like, I wish you would have told me this before we bought the $1 million house. We need both of our incomes. And she goes, I want to have a family. I'm not going to put my kids through daycare.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you better go find something that you can work from home. And little did I know, she started Googling work from home at mom, and then she quit her job just a few months later.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so Brian, how did you and Rhonda have that conversation about moving and quitting your 6-figure jobs? Like, because you guys were doing some amazing stuff to then go traveling. Like, that just sounds pretty crazy.
Well, she actually got started, and she got started in December, and I remember that there was an event by Disneyland. We lived in San Diego, and she goes, I got this, and it was called like a Super Saturday. So it was like a, affiliate marketing, and it was a Super Saturday. You go there, and my wife goes, I got this incredible opportunity. It's going to be Saturday. And I went, yeah, but I'm going to go snowboarding because Mammoth is going to get a foot of snow. And little did I know, she went to this event that had 2,000 people. She plunked down like $25K to go like all in on this deal. She didn't tell me anything about it. She started working it, made no sales, and then she said, I'm quitting my job. And I thought she was absolutely crazy. But she said, I'm determined. And she said, if these other people are doing it, I can do it. And I was like, yeah, I can agree with that. If somebody can do it, you can do it. So she didn't ask me, she just did it.
So hold on. So she went to this event. She put down $25K, made no sales, and still just said, "That's it. I'm going all in on this."
Yeah, it was 3 months later, and we're having another event that was in Cancun, Mexico, and she said it was already prepaid for. So I didn't even know the $25K.
Oh, wow.
She quit her job before she made anything, and then we went to this event in Cancun, Mexico, and that's the first time that I got to see personal development speakers, and I'm like, what is this? And this was talking about law of attraction, before the movie The Secret. And I'm just like this corporate engineer before I had a beard going, what is this like craziness, this law of attraction? But what I realized in those 3 days, I went from the guy with the crossed arms to this is all a bunch of BS to, what if there was some truth, and what if you could live a life by design versus the corporate matrix world? I said, what if
it was The Secret?
It was. It was funny. I think I forgot which speaker. I don't know if it was Bob Proctor that was in there, but he was in The Secret. But The Secret came out I think about 4 or 5 months after that event, and then it became mainstream of wow, this is something, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to ask something more from an emotional standpoint, from your point of view through that time. So you guys were both on 6-figure jobs. Rhonda's quit her job, wants to have a family. Internally, how was that for you at that point in time? With finances, pressures, what was the sort of stuff that you were dealing with at the time?
Man, I wish I could say it was hard. It was easy, man. I didn't have to work much. I was still one of the top salespeople. Because it was a robotics engineer. So I didn't learn any more technical stuff. I learned how to sell and communicate. And then I learned how to bring the right people in for the sales. And so it was actually a cush job for me, even though I was dealing with, high-end stuff with Elon Musk, SpaceX, and stuff like that. It was fascinating. But I didn't have to deal with a whole lot. And then when we invested in 2000, first house, and then we sold that 3 years later, made $500,000. It was easy. Everything we did was turning to gold. And then we started going bigger and bigger and started investing more money into a big golf course deal in Arizona. And essentially, we were thinking that we were setting up my parents, a whole bunch of friends who also invested. We were setting us up for we can all retire to we're losing it all. And it was we realized 2 weeks after my daughter, Hanalei, when she was born, 2 weeks after she was born, which was April 17, 2007, that we're going to have to file bankruptcy, and we're going from multimillionaire to losing everything.
Wow. So
And it was
just to
like,
clarify, so I have a good
Yeah.
mental picture. What was the time gap from when she had quit her job to go all in, and you guys living high, to then going through that process and going, oh, we're going to have to go bankrupt?
So she quit her job in March of 2005.
Yep.
We started investing heavily in real estate, and then 2007, so essentially 2 years, went from living the best, like, oh my God, everything we do turns to gold, to, oh my God, what the heck do we do now? So in a matter of 2 years.
And Hanalei was born at this point in time?
Yeah, she was born, and it was like, it was, for like almost a year and a half, it was kind of the most challenging mindset, lawyers, lawsuits, losing millions to paying lawyers, a couple $100K, and there was just it was just this vicious cycle, and we're like, what, there was like no option out. We were just
So Brian, like when you faced that, when were you like, all right, cool, I'm ditching this and we're gonna go travel the world?
So that was a crazy first thing. I didn't know how to get out. Like, I'm like, we're just screwed for life. And my buddy's like, he goes, the only thing you can do right now, because you have 5 houses on your name. The guy that stole the money, he extracted $500,000 out of each house. The house is sold to another's, and then they were coming after us, and so it was like there was like no option, right? And when that happened, we were just like, okay, this is what we're gonna have to do. And the big thing, and I just shared this with Hanalei, I shared it with her just yesterday, and if it wasn't for, because my parents, they just had retired. And so I said, hey, you can be part of this. And they put their own names, right, and onto a couple $1 million houses. The mortgage company, they went bankrupt. It was a whole part of the scam and the real estate market. And I had to tell my parents, I'm like, you're going to have to sell your house, get rid of everything, and then go to move to either, and they were Illinois. My parents grew up in the same 15-mile radius for their entire life till 65, retired. And now I'm like, in order to like not have, everything taken away from you, you're going to have to sell your stuff and buy another home in either California, where we live, or in Florida, where my brother and sister live. And they chose Florida. I said, how could you do this, not be with my daughter? And, and I'm like, I'll take care of you. And they're looking at me at the same time like, yeah, you're the same person that got us into this mess. But it was at that decision to where Rhonda and I, we looked at each other and we're like, well, we already know how to generate money online. We could stay here in San Diego and rebuild our life and just be like, the average Jones, right? And we looked at, my wife looked at me and she said, I vowed never to put my children in daycare. And my father, he passed away when I was 16, but between the age of 11 and 16, I saw what death was like, because he had AIDS. And from the age of 11 to 16, he took us, my brother, my sister, and I, traveling all the world, because he knew, he actually didn't know when, if tomorrow may be your last. And I looked at her and I went, we're never guaranteed another day. I go, this internet thing's not going anywhere. And on June 5th, 2008, we said, okay, let's go take a 2-year trip around the world. And, it's like, and everybody, it was crazy. It's like people, our friends, family knew we were losing everything. And then they thought we were the most absolutely craziest. And we said, we're going to go travel around the world.
Yeah.
And we got shunned. Like, everybody was like, how could you do this? You're going to, your child is going to be wrecked. She's going to have no family, no friends. She's going to be broken and blah, 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 casting all these fears. And I went, you got to go with your heart. And if we don't do it now, what if, when will we ever? This is our only chance. I go, the only thing that was staving me was my parents moving there, and they didn't do it. So I'm like, let's do it. And that's kind of the decision. It was really, what a big determining factor was the 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss.
Ferriss.
Yeah, I think it's sitting up there.
He had the mini retirement, the semi-retirement, I think it was called. And he was talking about how if you have an online system and something that you can work from anywhere, you can live in the world's best places, and mostly for a fraction of the cost of what it costs in the USA or any first world country. And it just kept on like, what if we just got rid of everything? And it's kind of a common thing, like, oh, I got rid of everything. But when we did it, no one was doing that. Like, there's individuals, but no families.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had another family that's been doing it longer than us. It's, so we were freaking out there, and we heard it from everyone,
And this was before the Unstoppable brand was created, right? This was the Swan lifestyle back then, right?
The Swan lifestyle, exactly. We didn't know what to call ourselves. We just branded ourselves as our last name with a lifestyle, and then everybody thought we were a swinger company, so we had to change the name, and we decided to call it a Unstoppable Family. So yeah, there you go.
There's something which I just want to pull out of that before we go forward. So with the 2007, Hanalei is born, and you go through this stuff. So something that distinctively kicked in for me, which was, I don't know, it's just like, I can only explain it. It was like hardwired in, was like this provider instinct of, I didn't want my wife to work. I wanted to make sure that they were taken care of, and probably a very traditional, dad goes out to work sort of mentality. And I just felt it in my core. With going through this process, and then having a baby, obviously it would have been a stressful time. Like, how did you, as I guess the man, how did you deal with that in the relationship? And the reason why I ask this is because with a baby, it's obviously a different risk profile, and you're in the storm of it right now.
Yeah, my wife, she's the hardcore, like, freaking go-getter. She's type A, but when she was having, and I got my dog welcoming crew here. Hey. So. But when she had Hanalei, she had to take care of her, and I had to step into the role. And it was, since I had already quit our job, I already quit my job by then. I was taking on the marketing side, we were doing prospecting, and I was taking on that role. So there was just like, I just had to do that. But it was, for us, it was pretty much we were, both putting in the effort on it. But yeah, right when Hanalei was born, I was in control there, and
that's amazing.
It was easy. It was it was the most mind-boggling, like, crazy. I didn't even know what was real. And it was like, okay, I'm like, I better start yoga. I better start meditation, because I don't know how to get me out of this, And it was also like the personal development of what we were learning. And so the company was a personal development company. I started, expanding our boundaries, and like, you can get through this. And then when you start hearing that, you start hearing of other examples. And I started, listening to Tony Robbins. You're listening to, Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar, and you start like, wow. And when you hear about these things, you're like, almost everyone that has made or did something big, they've lost everything at one, like almost everybody. I'm like, well, this is pretty sweet. We're getting this one out of the way. So I think, the only way we're going to, go is up. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Because you were pretty much at rock bottom, right? You're leaving the country, you're selling everything, you're claiming bankruptcy, so you're at rock bottom. You can only go up from there. But I have to ask, right? Because over the time of this period of your life, and Hanalei is only 14 now, and it's only 14 years ago that you were at this rock bottom. And over this period of time, you've not only gone from the Swan lifestyle to now the Unstoppable Family. There's Unstoppable Mama, there's Unstoppable Surfer, there's Unstoppable Beard, there's the Unstoppable Family, there's Unstoppable Kid. there's this whole unstoppable, it's almost hashtag unstoppable for you guys. So
Yeah.
how were you able to grow a business, and not just one business, but a series of other businesses, and support, beautiful Hanalei achieve her dreams in such a short period of time, 14 years?
Well, it was easy, I would say. Like once we got rid of everything, there was this switch. Before when we were making really, we were one of the top income earners in this personal development affiliate marketing company. And that was, to me, was just easy. All you had to do was market and freaking call and put people into a system. That was easy to me. And once we let everything go, there was a switch to where when we're making a lot and then we found out we're losing, we couldn't make any money. And then when we let everything go and say, just have it, then everything started flowing again. But then afterwards, what we were realizing that, man, this, affiliate marketing, I don't know, it's like we had to build something of our own. And we started at first, we were really good at brands. And we're like, hey, let's start, Unstoppable Branding Agency. And we started this freedompreneur movement to be able to show other people how to be able to work from anywhere in the world. Just wanted to show that. And what we realized when you had your own company, man, it was like 100 times harder than doing an affiliate marketing. So it's just been a learning process, man. And it's getting kicked in the gut hundreds and hundreds of times and figuring out, it's like when you're your own boss, if I could think back at the corporate world, it was a piece of cake because you could blame everyone else, your boss, and you could just, do just the minimum amount of work. But man, when you take it on, it takes, like, if you were to know what it was going to take, and you guys being entrepreneurs, and you're the show, and people's lives, you're responsible for people's lives, man. There's only one. You just got to keep on getting up and going every single day.
So you guys traveled the world, but you're located in Bali at the moment. So when you guys sold up and you moved, what was the process of moving like, more so from like a family perspective, and you've got a young child at the time and getting her integrated in. So from the parent role, how did you go about that process? Or was she just like naturally along the ride with you guys? And it seems like, a lot of things have been a smooth process.
No, there's nothing smooth about it, man. It's just, it seems that way. When we left, she was 1 year old. So, it wasn't until she was 2.5 years old when we came to Bali. Actually, we came here. We went to Hawaii. We went to Mexico, traveled through a little bit of Central America. And then we came to Bali in 2009, and she went to her first school. And that was like kind of like a, just a fun type of place, right? And then we started going to places where like, hey, do you want to go to school? And she's like, I want to meet friends, because she was an only child. So our whole thing, this was probably the one of the biggest learning things, is being flexible. And you're never gonna, like, what you think is like the right thing to do, you got to go with your gut, your intuition, and if things not going the right way, you just switch gears. And so she wanted to keep on going to school. So we lived in Peru. She would go to school, Brazil. She went to like probably 6 different languages before she was 7 years old. And then when we got to Bali, she was, I think, 8 years old, 9 years old, and she went to school for a couple of years, dropped out, started her first company, made 6 figures at the age of 11, and there you go.
That's pretty
Talk too much about that, because I want to unpack that, Brian, right? Because there are very few children that has made 6 figures. Actually, very few people have made 6 figures in a business, let alone a child at the age of 11 years old, right?
Yeah.
And so your parenting and your influence and Rhonda's influence must have been massive in that whole process. And I'm sure you guys are really supportive along the journey. But I know Hanalei obviously has a fashion line. She's, a really, really great author. She's also got a great artist. And she also has the Unstoppable Kid. So you guys have really been an inspiration for that. So how did you really foster that education that that entrepreneurship of Hanalei?
You know, it's one of those things. There was no handbook for what we were doing. We were just kind of taking bits and pieces of what we saw and liked and started implementing. But the one thing that we asked, we have this YouTube video when she was, I think, 7 years old, and we were in Costa Rica. And my wife, we're on the beach, and she's asking Hanalei. We used to have these things called Wisdom of the Day with Hanalei, and we're just shooting video to have her speak her voice and have her be, as we respect her as a human being, not a 7-year-old, right? And my wife asked her on video. She said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And she goes, "I want to be a fashion designer." And she said it instantly. And then my wife turned it around. She goes, "You know you could be that now." And there was this, like, you can see it on the video, this like glimpse, like, really? And my wife goes, "You can be a fashion designer right now. You could have your own fashion company at the age of 8. You could be the best fashion designer in the world." And we gave her there was no boundaries. We're just like, do what you want, whatever makes you happy. And she was into this, and we discovered at the age of 9 that she actually was been sketching and being a fashion designer, because we don't come from the fashion world. We had no idea. And somebody's like found her, like she showed somebody her drawings, this fashion designer, and she's like, "Where did you learn these?" And she goes, "They're all in my head." And we just explored it. It was like one of these things, like, okay, let's have her get if you want to learn more, we have a mentor. Okay, let's get some of your dresses produced. And she got to see her sketches that she had at 5 years old that came to life. And then there was like grown women who she sketched these designs for, and she could see these women wearing them and it was like mind blowing.
Yeah, wow.
And so, it was interesting, like, when we got a tailor, and she had her own little fashion team, and it was working with her mentor and her mentor's team. So we're just like, whatever you want to do, like, just explore. And I remember when we were like, hey, let's get a little shop, not just so she could, produce and do her designs. People were like, well, what if she wants to change her mind? And the next year we're like, great. That's just part of like what you want to do. Is like, she's going to change her mind millions of times. But it was just giving them permission. And that's the biggest thing. We were giving permission on, like, go explore. It's funny, man. She created her, 6 figures fashion line at the age of 11. At the age of 12, she was giving a talk. She got flown, from Bali first class to Las Vegas to give a talk to 500 entrepreneurs that paid $15,000 to be in the room. And she's at an age of 11. She's telling them, you can do anything you want. I'm age of 11. What's your, what's your issue? And anyway, at the age of 12, she was like, she's giving a talk at another stage, and she goes, I think I'm going to take a little break from this. And she kind of took a break, and now she's doing it again at 14. So she's coming out of retirement at 14. We don't pressure her anymore.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
I have to ask Brian, because I know she was offered. Someone came in to try to invest or buy a company outright. So how much would you enlighten us in terms of how much what someone wanted to buy a company for?
Well, so her brand, Hanalei Swan, she was giving a talk here in Bali, and one of the investors from that's like the money behind Shark Tank offered her $30 million, but they were going to take 70% of the name, the brand, and we're just like, and he was like the real deal, and we had to talk about it the next day, and Hanalei's like, so if I give 70%, then I'm going against, because one of the things that he said was, our whole thing is about eco-friendly, all sustainable products, and in taking care of your workers. And she's like, could I keep my same workers? Could I do like keep it here in Bali? And he goes, we'd probably have to move it to China. We'd have to do this. And she was like, well, that goes against all my values. Why would I do that? And why would I give up my name? My name's going to be gone. Mm-hmm. And we had talks, and we were just like, we're not going forward,
Imagine that.
And who made that decision? Was it you and Rhonda, or was it Hanalei?
No, we call ourselves the three-legged table. So anything, we always get input from all of us. We make a decision together. And it wasn't aligning with her. She's like, this is against my values. And I'm like, you got to stand strong. And it would have been it would have been,
that's amazing.
It would have been a whole, you could just see like, wow, this could go real, not where you want it to go, and you could hear where he was talking. And I'm like, how do you feel, Hanalei? And she goes, I don't feel right. I just don't want to do it. I'm like,
Now, Brian, Brenda and I, so Brenda and I, Brian, we're brand new parents, right? So Nate is 5.5 months old, my son, and I know Brenda's
she's 4 months
daughter.
in 2
She's
days.
Almost 4 months and 2 days.
Yeah.
So what we want to learn is how can we instill amazing values, amazing creative juices in our children through the growth phases.
I'm sweating too. Let me give you a few tips that were very valuable. Yeah, it's getting into the wet season. So one of the things that we learned from the very first person I heard talk on stage, and I thought, who is this guy talking about law of attraction? And he had this voice that was kind of like this, talking about law. And I'm just like, huh? But something stuck with us. And I love to take things. It's like, are you religious? No, I'm a spiritual person. But I take things from different religions that I like. And I just kind of put it in, my tool belt, and that's how we operate. And he said, try this. He goes, take the words no, not, and don't out of your vocabulary. And he says, and try that. Instead of like, don't do that, you can't do this, stop, not stop, but like anything where you're consciously telling your kids not to do anything. Instead, rephrase it. And I'm not talking about like if kids running out in front of your car and they're about ready to die, you're like, hey, there's consequences. No, you're like, you stop there, but like, let them fall down. They're climbing up, the thing. Instead of like, get down from there. You can't do this. Instead of like, hey, there's consequences, but they're gonna learn, instead of like, don't run, while they're along the swimming pool. Hey, it's like, you may want to slow down, but you give them a choice. And what happens? It's so hard. It's so hard to do this. Try this with just you and your partner right now. And if your kids, in taking that out, you will catch yourself all the time. We still catch ourselves. But what happens, this is a big thing. You are treating them as a human being, and you're allowing them to make decisions at a very early age. And when they can make decisions at a very early age, then they can make the big decisions in life. And another thing, that's number one. We read Celestine Prophecy, right? And the Celestine Prophecy, there was a chapter in there where it was talking about, I think the daughter was 4 years old, and it was talk to them as if they're human beings, and not like asking the parents as if they're kids. So like, for instance, the daughter was 4 years old, and if you just see this all the time. A parent walks in with their child that's like 3 or 4 years old. What's your daughter's name? And the parent asks. What we do when she could barely talk, we were always like, ask her. Oh, yeah. My name's Hanalei. What does your daughter like to eat? She's a human. She's right there. Go ahead and ask her. And what it's doing is you are identifying them. You're giving them, they're a human being and they can make choices. Such huge, huge things. And we took that from a book, and we got it from a dude that was on the stage. But those are things that were so invaluable. And it wasn't until 7, but it's not, you ask your kids this, what do you want to be now? Not what you want to be when you grow up. And it's so if you think about it now, school is absolutely nonsense. My wife had a master's degree. I got a robotics engineering degree, but it is built for a system of employees to just be just trained to be high employees. Let them be in anything. You can't go to university and stuff. It's nonsense. Create things with them now. Do projects together. You know, that's why we shot videos with her when she was young. It wasn't to pimp her out on YouTube to like, look how cool my child is. What we were doing is we wanted to allow her to have a voice and be able to talk and communicate.
Yeah.
Such powerful things, man.
Man, that's some really, really powerful advice. So I don't live with my family. My family live on the other side of the country, and that's something that, we, and especially with lockdowns and lack of travel, it's something that we've missed out on, and that community side of stuff. Now, you guys are extreme to that, where, you're abroad. So from a family's perspective, obviously the three of you are very tight, but how have you built a community around you? It takes a village to raise a child, I guess, that old saying. So how have you guys navigated that side of things?
Well, right now where we live in Uluwatu, Bingen area, and it's a tight little community. And I'm a surfer, and she was never surfing, and she just picked it up by one of her mentors just about a year and a half ago. And now we're going on surf trips all throughout Indonesia, but she's got a core group of girls that she surfs with all the time, and that's her buddies, and that's where she, it's like, it's so close knit here. When I look at Hanale's life, I'm like, man, I wish I would have grown up in this lifestyle. But, it's just, she's got mentors, and we've had family all around the world. So we've hosted events all around the world, and now people come and visit, and they're kind of like in and out. We have this big house, and we're like, oh yeah, come and stay. And like a lot of friends of ours, they've helped raise her, along with us. And we can only provide, Rhonda and I can only provide so much. And then we just bring in the right people that we can really trust and give her aspects that we can't provide, like the artist side of things. I'm not an artist. I'm not a creative. I can do it creative, kind of like on marketing and stuff like that. But we just bring in the right people that you can really trust.
And I love that. I love that, Brian, because that's pretty important, I think, for Brendo and I. And where, although I have a lot of family here, I'm trying to. Kristen and I, we want to travel the world with our son, and so we actually want to be away from our family. Now, what I've seen with what you guys. And look, I made that in a positive way. I just want my son to have immersion in other cultures. And it's and I might just kind of touch on this really quickly. I want my son to learn multiple languages, and I want him to experience multiple cultures. And you can only do that so much whilst living in a very secular society like Australia. Now, we are multicultural, but we all speak English. We're all very similar. And I want my son to experience that through immersion of a culture.
Well, that's how when we decided to go travel, we're like, it was A, my wife made a vow. B, I saw death between the age of 11 to 16. And I saw my father. This is one of the things that I like to, when I do talk about the perfect day. And if you knew your expiration date, what would you be doing now? What happens is that we always think that we have, forever to live. But if you knew that you only had, let's say, 2 years left to live, what would you be living? What would you be doing? It's like, I would go travel and go do these things. There's no better learning environment than being able to be in different countries, different cultures, and experience that. I think it was, when we lost everything financially back in 2007, 2008, it felt like the worst thing. But if it didn't happen, we would probably be living a beautiful life in San Diego and just like the Joneses. But it had to happen in order for us to change. And, I think a lot of people just think that, I can do it some year.
Yeah.
Nah, go out there, do it and explore, you got to explore.
I think it's a Will Smith quote that says, the best things in life are on the other side of fear.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the perfect day, and I actually use your YouTube videos to help me through before becoming a dad. So I had built a dating app and I sold it, and I decided it was that time to exit, because I wanted to be there for my child, potentially our first child. And my thing was I didn't want to look back in 3-4 years time and miss those early stages, because my mind is so caught up, and I'm just not mentally or emotionally there. So I decided that was my time to stop. And then when I exited and I got paid out, I didn't need to work. So there was no pressure, and but I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And I being an entrepreneur, and you always are used to doing stuff, and well, for me, it was exciting to wake up in the morning and look at analytics and build something. And then all of a sudden, that was gone, and I didn't need to do anything anymore, and kept on trying to ask, well, what does my life look like? I mentioned the provider instinct kicked in, and it was, I want to make sure my wife is taken care of so she doesn't have to worry about anything. And there were certain distinctive things. And so, yeah, I actually used, I think you have 2 YouTube videos. There was quite an early one, and so used both of them. And then just really started to plan out financially, what does the perfect life look like for us time-wise, and fulfillment-wise, for me as well, what does that look like? Now, for you, it was being able to go surfing every day, and you guys have built that lifestyle around it. But the question that I have on that is how often, and I guess this is how long is a piece of string, but your perfect day would have changed over the years. So what's the perfect day for you now?
Well, it still actually is the same thing. It's like I wake up, I go check the surf. I surf if it's good. If not, I'm exercising. I haven't changed it that much. The different avenues of how I do business and who I associate with has changed, but the framework of every single morning going to surf, do yoga, exercise. I meditate. I do my breath work. It's like before, it was like having breakfast with my family. I don't, eat till 2:00. So some things have changed, but the businesses have changed, right? It's like you get different missions, like for my beard company, it was funny. Like I grew a beard 5 years ago, and then it was a joke in our family they're like, yeah, you should start a beard company. And I liked beard videos, and I thought it was hilarious. But I was always making excuses, and when COVID happened, my daughter, and it's usually my daughter that does that, she's finally she goes, Dad, when are you ever going to start that beard company you keep on talking about? And I'm like, when COVID happened, we were traveling half of the year, so always we were traveling or this new project, and finally dude, I'm not leaving anywhere. It's like, might as well. And it was like what I've always done and how I've navigated different projects and what I want to do is how is it going to provide for all of our, we have the umbrella brand of the Unstoppable family, my wife's Unstoppable Mama, but we have the Unstoppable Branding Agency, which is really our cash cow, and that's where everything flows. And my daughter has her fashion company there. I'm like, well, if I can learn e-com business versus, because we know how to sell digital products, right? I know how to speak. We know how to, we know how to do this. But what if I can learn a digital e-com business, and I know that the videos that I might be doing, how is it going to be working into my other businesses? And man, I have people that buy, $30 beard products, and then they become like 50K clients in our branding agency.
Oh, wow.
Because what happens, I want to have everything so, when you start seeing a video of mine, then they're like, oh, then you see a video of Hannah, then you see a video of wife, and then you're like, well, how did they do this high-end marketing? Oh, they got a branding agency, and lo and behold, phew.
That's so good.
So nothing. I wanted to say I'm still what I wrote out on pen and paper, August 30th, 2006, when I wrote it out. It really hasn't changed, man.
That's really cool.
It hasn't. I say that I'm going for a surf. I'm doing business. I pretty much walk through this almost the same stuff, but I talk about how I want to do things that are meaningful. And what's meaningful for me 10 years ago is not meaningful. For business wise, per se. Affiliate marketing was the best thing in the world, and then you're like, man, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. And then you just do something else, but you have to go on your own, it's the things that really bring you life. And right now, it's like the beard, and I just had a Beards, Brews, and Tattoos event. It was freaking awesome. Because and why I do these things, it's because it's about the experiences of life.
Yeah.
Now, is it going to be making me money? A lot of the things that we do, they're not about making the money right then and there. But what we're doing and what we're incredibly good at is we're building real relationships. We're building brands. And we're building trust in people. We have people that come, there's 50K. I'm just going to say 50K because that's kind of like where our bigger package. And when they come, they're like, I've been watching you guys since when you left 14 years ago. You're the only people I can trust.
That's so good.
And it's like, we don't look at things as short-term games. And a big thing that what we learned, my wife learned, she just said this the other day on a big interview. And it was about not putting dollar signs on people's heads. And when I say that, think about when you go to different events and you're like, well, I wonder if I could sell them this thing. Stop putting dollar signs on people's heads. And it's those long-term, and when you can make those long-term relationships and people know you're like where they're like, man, I like the values that you've instilled with Hannah. I like the values how you navigate a business. It's a long game.
Yeah.
But that
And
long game will last forever.
It's pretty cool how you've done it as well, Brian, because you guys aren't just here for a short-term quick win. You guys have been featured in top-tier magazines. I know that's what you guys focus on, specialize in at UBA, but it's not as if you've just done that for your clients. You've done that for yourself time and time and time again. You've been on panel talks. You've been around the world presenting at masterminds, on the news. You're featured everywhere and all over social media. So it's hard to not just stay in touch with your story and really connect, because when you hear Rhonda speak, when you hear yourself speak and Hannah Lay speak, it's hard to not feel connected with your mission, your vision, and what you guys are doing in this world. So, Brian, look, I want to be obviously cautious of your time, and look, it's been an absolute ball with you today. And I think we can obviously unpack more, and hopefully we can have you on the show again. But one thing I do want to ask you, right, is how, what's something that the average person, the average family can take away, and how can they be an unstoppable person or an unstoppable family, live an unstoppable life just like you?
Be an unstoppable dad.
That's it.
Yeah. Probably one of the biggest things that I've really learned over this last year and a half during COVID is the relationship that I have with my wife and my daughter. Now, that's a very generic way how I said it. But I've had to do a lot of work on myself over this last year and a half. Being comfortable is, we've been together for 23 years. We're incredible, great friends, but how can we build a better relationship together? And we've done a lot of work, a lot of deep work. Myself and my wife, and having that relationship, not just watching Netflix, but having meaningful, deep conversations. One of the things also I did this last year, Hannah Lay, she's like, it's so funny when you think that your kid has been traveling her whole life, that she's like, I don't want to travel again. She's got the bug and wants to travel. And I said, okay, we're not leaving Indonesia this year, but I'm going to take you on all these surf trips to the world's best waves. And I just made it a priority. And how many times in life do you get to where you're just like, oh, I can't do it at this time. I got this project coming up. No, I just made it one of my highest priority, one of my highest values. And I didn't give a crap what I have going on. I said, we're taking a surf trip and we're going here. And I tell you, man, the best freaking moments of my life with this little girl and surfing. She's not little anymore. She's taller than my wife now. But it's putting things to where you're like date nights. how many times to where you're like, oh, it's you just sit home and do Netflix. I'm talking about date nights where you just go out with your wife and you don't go out with your friends and you chitty chat, but having meaningful conversations, man. That's how you can have an unstoppable life. And it's simple. It starts with you doing the work on yourself and having real, deep, meaningful conversations and moments together.
Man, that's cool.
Right. That's amazing.
I'd love to follow up in another episode on the show and really dive into, you know, how you've worked on yourself, how you've, like, specifics with working on the relationship. I think that's going to be super valuable for people as well. And, you know, if you're open to chat about that in the future, I think that people can get so much out of that.
You know, I think that's kind of like where the fifth dimension is on how, like, the deep work that we've done over the last year and a half. It's a lot of topics that, you know, you just can't talk about openly, censored stuff. But doing really deep work, you know, plant medicine, and it's not just, but it's going further. I'm getting bugged all over. But, you know, it's a lot of topics that just, even like men, you know, having a men's circle, men's group and stuff, it's really getting out of your comfort zone. And I'm not talking about just going out for beers with the boys and stuff and chatting about life, but really talking on deep stuff. You know, one of the books that changed my life on my relationship with my wife was Way of the Superior Man. I'd opened my mind. Have you read that book yet?
I haven't, but
no, I have to check it out.
Get the newer version. There's two. I think it's the newer version. Yeah.
Awesome.
Or maybe it's the old.
I'll check it out.
Look it up. But I tell you, especially learning this, I'm just going to share this with you. You know, is one of the things was women, and this is like, when I learned this, I was like, if I would have learned this 20-some years ago, oh my God, my relationship would have been different. And it was talking about how as women don't want problems solved. They want to be able to talk. They want to be going through the anger and the dancing with and what men want to do is we just want to solve a problem. How can we end this shit and go on?
Relatable, yep.
And yeah, and I remember we're about ready to have a deep conversation, and it was going to go into a deep, to where, you know, I'm just going to provide, and it was going to be a big thing. Anger. I sat there for literally, it was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed in my life, and I sat for 45 minutes basically just kind of nodding, listening, not even really saying anything. And my wife, like, this was like probably 3-4 years ago, and she goes, oh my God, this was the best conversation. Thank you for, like, understanding me. And I'm like, holy shit, this, like, I'm like, where has this been? Get it. And you'll see what I mean. But it's just things like that, man. It's like women don't want problems solved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate with that. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. Now, if people want to find out more about you, Rhonda, Hanalei, UBA, Unstoppable Beard, Unstoppable Mama, Unstoppable Surfer, Unstoppable Everything, Unstoppable Lifestyle, Unstoppable Dad, how do they find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's official brianswan.com. Brian, Brian, SWAN, official, because somebody else took that, Brian Swan. You can go to unstoppablefamily.com, unstoppablebrandingagency.com, unstoppablebeard.com. So, yeah. But you can get everything under official Brian Swan.
Amazing. And just remember, if you buy one product for $30, you're going to buy some $50,000 from UVA sometime soon too, because it's all interconnected.
I'm doing this because I know it's going to work this way. And it does.
Yeah, 100%. And look, we'll link all of those links in the show notes, as well as that book that you highly recommend every man check out, The Way of the Superior Man.
Awesome.
I think it's what you need to do. You guys will dig it,
Brian,
and it'll make your life easier.
Fantastic. Thank you so much,
Brian. Thank you so much for your time. All right. Peace.
All right.
Cool.
Catch you guys.
That's awesome.